Settlement stunner, the bank that could be about to pay the biggest penalty ever in U.S. history. In today's cover story, Uber hires a secret weapon to fight regulators. Plus, why Wall Street is scrambling to bulk up on brokers. And in Movies and Money, must-see stocks. First Business starts now.
You're watching First Business. Financial news, analysis, and today's investment ideas.
Good morning, I'm Angela Miles. It's Thursday, August 21st. In today's First Look, the S&P is still just shy of a record. Stocks closed mixed Wednesday. The Dow added on 59 points. The Nasdaq fell by 2 and the S&P up 5. Gold lost $5. Oil perked up by $1.92. The biggest market mover of the day, minutes from the Federal Reserve meeting indicating the Fed is not done yet with economic stimulus. Hewlett-Packard turned in a revenue surprise after the bell. The tech company sold more notebooks and desktop computers than anticipated. However, the profit was down by 29%. The stock initially sold off in the after-hour session. And hack attack alerts. UPS reports customer credit card information may have been stolen at 51 UPS stores, and the FBI warns healthcare firms to be on the lookout for hackers. Trader Todd Howitz of Average Joe Options joins us now. He has his eyes all over this market. And what do you make of this die-hard rally?
You know, look, the rally's been built on very light volume. It's been very thin. Volatility is totally falling apart here. You know, one thing we know for sure, dull markets have a tendency to go higher because there's always money going in through IRAs and through pension funds, so there's always buyers. So lack of volume and volatility, the market's figured to drift higher, which is exactly what they're doing right now.
The dollar reacted with a rally to the Fed minutes. What other reactions are you watching?
Well, I mean, I think if you take a look at the Fed minutes, I mean, you know, we're seeing stronger bond market, which is bringing down lower yield, which means there's a little flight to safety. We're seeing a stronger dollar, which is another sign of a flight to safety. I think you really have to take a look at this overall picture. There's a lot of money flowing into safer asset classes from somewhere, and I think they're telling you there's a reason to be worried here. And I'm not telling you that they should panic, but there isn't a reason to be worried because you can see the money flow into treasuries and into the U.S. dollar. Those are two signs of fear.
Did the Fed actually make any mention of anything that would change your status, though, here? It sounds like it's going to be a while before we see an interest rate hike.
You know, I think the Fed is totally out of bounds and off balance here, and I think that they're stuck and don't know what they want to do here. But as long as they remain cheap money, I guess the markets will continue to borrow and the big companies will continue to flourish, unlike the small business who can't borrow any money at all. So I think as long as the Fed holds their posture here, the market will probably stay fairly strong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck Coppola jumps in now with a shocker of a settlement that could come from Bank of America. Chuck.
Angie, Bank of America could be about to get rocked with a record settlement. The Associated Press reports the Justice Department is preparing a $17 billion settlement. It'll end the investigation into Bank of America's role in selling shoddy mortgages to investors prior to the financial crisis. And it could become the largest penalty ever between the U.S. government and a single company. Bank of America is not commenting, but the super settlement nearly equals the bank's profits for the past 3 years. Shares inched up 7 cents Wednesday.
In another major developing story, the U.S. is reportedly considering sending 300 more troops to Iraq as a security measure. President Obama broke from his vacation in Martha's Vineyard yesterday to address the beheading of American journalist James Foley.
The United States of America will continue to do what we must do to protect our people. We will be vigilant and we will be relentless.
Republican lawmakers have been calling for more aggressive action in Iraq. Not long after the president's speech, the stock market edged up to its highest level this session.
McDonald's has been ordered to shut down 4 locations in Russia. Russian officials say it's due to sanitation violations. The locations include the flagship McDonald's in Moscow. The fast food chain says it's studying the regulators' claims. And more trouble on tap. Brewers in Eastern Europe report weaker beer sales due to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Both Carlsberg and Heineken said sales were soft in the second quarter.
Turning to an update from the St. Louis area, Attorney General Eric Holder traveled to Ferguson yesterday where he met with students, state police, and the FBI. Holder says he's confident an investigation will determine whether federal civil rights were violated. An independent autopsy report indicates Michael Brown, who was unarmed when he was shot by police, was surrendering just before he was killed. Brown's funeral is scheduled for Monday.
Macy's is paying a hefty penalty for racial profiling. The department store is agreeing to a fine of $650,000 to settle racial bias claims. An investigation by the New York Attorney General finds Macy's stopped and detained a high percentage of minority shoppers in its Herald Square store. Macy's plans to hire an independent monitor to address the complaints. Earlier this month, Barney's New York reached a similar agreement.
A billion-dollar error is costing a couple of top executives their jobs at Walgreens. The mistake is related to a forecasting error regarding what the Wall Street Journal calls a miscalculation of the impact of rising generic drug costs on the pharmacy's bottom line. The CFO and the head of the pharmacy have reportedly left under pressure, along with severance packages that top $3 million.
Billionaire Warren Buffett's corporation is running into trouble with the government. Regulators say Berkshire Hathaway failed to file a timely report that it was boosting its voting stake in USG. USG is a building products company. Berkshire swapped some of the convertible notes it owns into common stock last December. Buffett's Berkshire has agreed to pay close to $900,000 for the civil penalty.
Voters in Alaska are upholding a new law that cuts taxes on oil production. The measure is worth up to $1 billion per year to oil giants, including BP and Exxon. Alaskans pushing for repeal faced opposition that raised a reported $15 million. Results of Tuesday's election won't be certified until September 2nd.
Hertz takes a hit. Shares of the car rental company plunged 3% yesterday after the company withdrew its financial guidance for 2014. It cited operational challenges and said recalls have put a damper on the amount of cars it can rent out. It is the latest setback for Hertz, which earlier this summer found 3 years' worth of accounting mistakes in its books. Earlier in trading, the stock sank more than 11% until billionaire investor Carl Icahn revealed that he had an 8.4% stake in the company. Shares rebounded, closing above $30.
Car and truck owners are said to be struggling to make payments on auto loans. According to Experian, the number of people who were late or defaulted on loans surged in the second quarter of the year. The number of repossessions is also rising. Experian says it's being driven mostly by borrowers with subprime credit scores of 550 to 619.
In today's cover story, an alternative to taxis called Uber is running into political tornadoes in several states. Broadly speaking, proponents of more regulations say Uber relies on a driver's personal insurance to cover costs in the case of an accident. Uber is under attack. The taxi alternative via smartphone app has become the target of regulators.
It is absolutely a concern that the rideshare vehicles are not being operated in a manner that is safe for the public, the drivers, and passengers.
Despite website graphics showing Uber drivers match or exceed Chicago taxi requirements for insurance and background checks, more requirements await Illinois Governor Quinn's signature, including making Uber's busiest drivers get a chauffeur's license.
If you're dealing with the public and everything, you should have some type of permit.
But Uber Illinois, located in this unmarked Chicago building, fought back Wednesday.
We have rejected dozens of currently active taxi drivers who committed felonies in places like Ohio or Colorado because our background checks catch those where the standard ones don't.
Currently, Uber says Chicago's taxi lobby has kept it out of pickups from the airport and convention center. Uber takes 20% of each fare and wants into these locations. Uber launched 4 years ago and says it now generates $2.8 billion for the U.S. economy.
People are jumping on board in anticipation of a potential public offering, and everybody's thinking, there will be a public offering in the near future. People are jumping on board, hoping to make a lot of money.
This week, Uber hired David Plouffe, President Obama's 2008 campaign manager.
We need to play the political game because, unfortunately, someone else is already playing it.
Uber is also facing scrutiny overseas. In Berlin this week, Uber drivers were suspended from operating. In France, a bill requiring all Uber drivers to return to their dispatch center between fares threatens to disrupt its business model completely.
The Department of Transportation is out with a way for consumers to keep up with this year's steady stream of vehicle recalls. This website is free to car and truck owners who want to search for recall information. The web address is on your screen.
Some brands of peanut and almond butter are being recalled due to possible salmonella contamination. Inspired Natural Foods is voluntarily recalling 45 lots of Arrowhead Mills peanut butter, along with Maranatha almond and peanut butters. The products were sold at Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Kroger, and Safeway. It's not clear how many jars are affected. There is a possible link to 4 reports of illness.
In our roundup of retail earnings, Lowe's leads the way. The home improvement store reported a rise in profit and revenue, but lowered its earnings forecast for the year. Shares gained about 1.5% on the news. Target reports it's still reeling from that massive data breach from last Christmas. The retailer lowered its outlook for the year, but says there are signs of improvement in back-to-school sales. That stock rallied almost 2%. Staples admits profit and sales are down. 140 stores will be closed this year. The retailer shed 2.5% in its share price. And American Eagle soared nearly 12%. The profit was down, but it topped estimates.
This week marks the end of an era for Twinkies. Hostess Brands is closing the Illinois bakery where the treat was invented more than 80 years ago. The bakery has had its ups and downs lately, closing after Hostess Brands declared bankruptcy in 2012. It then reopened a year later under new management of 2 private equity firms. 400 employees will lose their jobs in the closure.
$100 goes a long way in Mississippi. A new study by the Tax Foundation adjusts the value of $100 to show how prices vary. A Franklin is worth the most in Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, South Dakota, and West Virginia, while D.C., Hawaii, New York, New Jersey, and California give consumers the least bang for their buck. On the economic calendar for today, it's initial and continuing unemployment claims, existing home sales, Philly Fed, leading indicators, natural gas inventories. And on the earnings calendar, it's New York & Company, Hormel Foods, Aeropostale, Perry Ellis, Sears Holding, GameStop, Gap, Dollar Tree, and Salesforce.com. Still to come, why film studio stocks are the talk of the town in Hollywood and on Wall Street. Plus, is the rise of the indie brokerage firm creating a job crisis? And see if you can guess the state where the most billionaires are born. That answer is coming up. Call them billion-dollar babies. A new study finds in the U.S., more billionaires are born in New York than any other city, followed by Chicago and Los Angeles. Detroit, Houston, Pittsburgh, and San Francisco also made the list. According to researchers, the economy, access to education, and inspiration from other billionaires create the right environment for becoming rich. Bill Muller tells us what brokers are doing to become wealthy.
American companies consider relocating overseas to avoid taxes. Well, we've reported on inversions before. Here's another twist in tax avoidance. Advisors from large brokerage firms are leaving, taking their clients with them, starting their own firms, yes, in part for tax reasons. Elizabeth Dilch wrote a comprehensive story about this for Reuters and joins us by Skype. So, Elizabeth, what are the facts here?
The facts are that financial advisors at the nation's 4 largest securities brokerages, Morgan Stanley, UBS, Wells Fargo, and Merrill Lynch, are all finding that if they leave the brokerage, retire, sell their business to an independent broker-dealer or a registered investment financial advisor, then they can get more money on the sale of their business, sometimes 2 to 4 times as much, and they can get it at a more favorable capital gains tax rate.
How significant is this? Is this creating a big impact with the brokerage firms? Because I know we have a cresting wave of retirees about to come forth.
You're right. There's estimates say that about 100,000 advisors will be retiring in the next 10 years. So that's a third of the industry.
You say that the wirehouses are worried about this. How are they fighting back?
For example, Merrill Lynch has created a program that advisors can go into before they retire. They will work with one other, their successor basically, and they'll work with that person to solidify client relationships and make sure that those clients stay with the person who takes over their business when they leave. That makes them feel more secure because their retirement offer is contingent on whether or not their clients stay with the firm after they retire.
Well, it's a fascinating story, Elizabeth. We're not hearing too much other than your reporting on this. Very interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, the skinny on Gap ahead of earnings. Will trendy jeans give a zip to the retailer's bottom line? And in Movies and Money, films that are putting the spotlight on movie studio stocks. Stay with us. In Investors are applauding film studio stocks. Disney has a magic touch at the box office and shares hit a new high this week. And DreamWorks spiked Monday as that studio hired a former DirecTV executive. And How to Train Your Dragon 2 opened big in China. Joining us now, our movie guy, Eric Childress. Good to have you here as always.
Thank you.
So a couple of film studios doing well with their stocks, at least.
Most certainly. I mean, Disney's, certainly had a really good year with Maleficent, and it seems like they're going to be making Frozen money for the next, decade, it seems that way. And DreamWorks, we've picked on them a little bit because they've had some problems with their investors, and, How to Train Your Dragon 2 didn't exactly, jump out of the gate in the summer movie season. But thanks to the overseas dollars, we just saw this, this week out of China, that the movie has gone over $500 million worldwide at the box office, and right now it's the 6th most profitable film of the summer.
Let's take a look at what happened at the box office last weekend. As you predicted, a big down move to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, 56%, I believe it dropped. And a film, it's a second week in a row at number 1, but it's still a film that needs about $185 million just to break even for the studio.
Also at the box office over the weekend, Guardians of the Galaxy coming in at number 2, Let's Be Cops, The Expendables 3, and The Giver. And not on the list, The 100-Foot Journey, which I saw and I loved. But I was having a beautiful movie experience because it was my day off.
Yes.
It was nicely air-conditioned. I was happy about my popcorn situation. And I love this film. It's heartwarming. It's sweet. It's great. You've not seen it yet,
I've not seen
right?
the movie yet.
It's definitely an Angie movie.
It's an Angie
I don't know if
movie.
it's
Gotcha.
an Eric, but I think you're going to like it.
Yeah, I saw Expendables 3, so that was more of an Eric movie.
Did you like that?
I liked it, yeah. It's a meathead of a movie, but, I like to be a meathead sometimes.
So it was high on your list.
It was high on my list. Guardians of the Galaxy, though, is sort of the big story on that list. Who would have thought that this was going to be the number 1 grossing film of the summer?
This weekend at the box office, some interesting films to watch here. Frank Miller's Sin City, A Dame to Kill For.
Yeah, a sequel slash prequel to the 2005 film that Robert Rodriguez did of the Frank Miller graphic novels. And I enjoyed this film. I mean, if you like the first Sin City, you're going to like this one. There's a little too much Jessica Alba in the last third of the movie.
Is that possible?
It's possible when she's
like her.
acting. It's fine when she's just kind of moving on screen, but when she's acting, it's kind of painful to watch. But I'm still recommending the film, and I think it's probably going to be number 1 this weekend, although you're going to see the numbers not be very high.
What about If I Stay?
If I Stay is sort of another dopey young adult romance that, funny enough, I think might turn into an interesting movie if you would have eliminated the boyfriend.
You didn't like him. Okay, and
No.
last but not least, When the Game Stands Tall.
Yeah, an underdog sports story is being very well advertised on ESPN. I'm hearing not so many good things about it, but it's based on a true story. It might spawn some interest, but I don't think you're going to see big numbers out of any of the films this weekend.
Thanks for coming on the show, Eric.
Thank you.
Still ahead, will earnings from Gap be the right fit for investors? Chart Talk is next. Matt Kavanaugh, CMC Trading, joins us now for Chart Talk. Hello, Matt. Let's talk about Gap. A lot of people are buzzing about this stock ahead of earnings.
Yeah, Gap came out earlier in the month. They said their same-store sales were better in July than they expected. So you've seen everyone kind of ramp up their estimates for what they're looking for. And I think also as a bellwether of the economy. So people are really going to watch and see what they say here.
What do you think? What is the chart telling you as a trader?
I think that Gap is actually a pretty good stock to maybe sell some call spreads, try to collect a little premium here. I don't think that there's going to be a ton to be gained from this earnings report other than information. And I think, Gap's beat about 10 quarters in a row. Everyone rushed to increase their estimates. So if they don't beat, maybe the stock sells off a little bit.
And the problem is we have to wait and find out if skinny jeans are still the cool buying trend with a lot of hipsters out there. So what could cause some headwinds that could bring the stock down? Because it has been an underperformer this year. It's up maybe, 1% or so, maybe 2%.
Well, I think the thing to watch is going to be the gross margins. Exactly how much did they have to cut their prices to move that merchandise? And also, what do they see going forward for the back-to-school season? Because it's already that time.
Good to have you on the show. Thank you for your insights today. Matt Kavanaugh, CMC Trading.
Thank you.
That's it for now. Check out our show tomorrow. A couple of traders will be ready to rumble over companies that ditch America to pay less in taxes. From all of us at First Business, have a great Thursday.